Now looking at the title of this film, you'll think, there's nothing wrong with this film. Well, we'll let you into a little secret. I had to watch this film 3 times and I had to bring out my ultra mega nitpicking mode, but I still found 10 things wrong with this film. Die Hard is a 1988 American action film directed by John McTiernan, and it's written by Jeb Stuart and Stephen E. Souza. The story follows New York City police detective John McClane, who is caught up in a terrorist takeover of a Los Angeles skyscraper while he's visiting his estranged wife, all whilst giving those famous one-liners. Now the film is actually a really good film, and it took a lot of effort, but I found them. 10 things wrong with Die Hard. Number 10, it's a Christmas film. Okay, so this one's not actually anything to do with the film itself, but it's the whole argument. Is this a Christmas film? Is it not a Christmas film? Well, let's look at some of the facts. Let's look at some of the things that why it isn't. Well, it got released in July to start with, and also Bruce Willis actually turns around and says, it's not a Christmas film, it's a goddamn Bruce Willis film. Which it is. But now let's look at some of the other things, or why it's a Christmas film. Well, it's set on Christmas Eve. The premise of the story is at a Christmas party. There is Christmas tunes left, right and centre. It is a Christmas film. And if you look at some of the storylines, it's a family getting back together. It's also about business greed and espionage. I'm talking about some of the films I've reviewed over the past few weeks. They're all in here in this Christmas film. It is a Christmas film. Berryman have spoken. It's a Christmas film, and if Bruce Willis has something to say about it, well, he can come over here to the UK, we'll get into a boxing fight and we'll thrash it out. Never gonna see this video, I hope. Number 9, poor security. Right at the beginning of this film, John McClane walks into the Nakatomi building. He just says to the security guard, I'm here to see his wife. He gives his wife's name. He just points at a computer display, he types in her name. Took him a couple of attempts because Holly's changed her surname. He finds where she is. Oh, she's on this floor. No questions of who she is, why he's there, or anything. Security just went, yeah, go on, mate. Didn't even see any ID. Now, I'm not going to completely and utterly blame the filmmakers because from what I've seen, security is not that good in this building. If you go and check out another YouTuber by the name of Nick P Was Here, he's done a video of what the film looked like then and what it looks like now, and he actually got into the building and he was there for some time filming before security turfed him out. So yeah, security's still not good in this building, and it was really apparent in this film. Number 8, wrong formation. So now the secret's out, the cops know the bad guys are in the building, they're sending people in, and they have Huey looking at the displays to give all the other terrorists what's going on. And he turns around and says, and I quote, they're in the standard 2x2 cover formation. Well, that's not what they were looking at. They were in single file. Now, I don't know what the actual terminology is. I'm sure someone out there with military knowledge will tell me, but it did not look like a 2x2. 2x2 is 2 people here, 2 people here. They were in a single file. Big mistake on that part. Number 7, using a real rocket launcher. So following on from the scene I've just talking about, the bad guys are actually winning. The cops are on the retreat, so the cops send in this armoured vehicle. All good so far. The vehicle's heading towards it. The bad guys get a rocket launcher and shoot the armoured vehicle. Brilliant viewing for us, the fans of this film. Except, filming it, they used a real rocket launcher. And that's where the problem actually comes from. Because at the time, the Nakatomi building, or Fox Plaza as it was known back then, it was a real building. It was still under construction, but some of the floors actually had lawyers in, which is why they were not allowed to film during the day. But they were also told they weren't allowed to break anything. But where in filming that scene, they used a real rocket launcher, it smashed a lot of the windows. Why couldn't you just use a prop? Saves you money, it would have saved a hell of a lot of aggro, and probably would have been a lot less dangerous for the actors. Although it would have been fun firing a real rocket launcher, I will say that. Number 6, bad FBI. I am a child of the 90s, so one thing I grew up with was how awesome the FBI was. You had Silence of the Lambs, how cool were the FBI then? And also, growing up, X-Files. Everybody in my school wanted to be an FBI agent, even though we're all English, never got a chance in hell of becoming an FBI agent. But the X-Files made the FBI look awesome and something you wanted to be an FBI agent. This film, luckily, came out in the 80s before the FBI got made to look good. And yeah, they just look like complete and utter morons, really. It's like gung-ho, they were more gung-ho Marines than they were FBI agents, and yet the FBI just looked like pillocks, really. Number 5, safety harness. During the quite believable fight between John McClane and Carl, they're getting into all sorts of scraps, and the way John McClane takes him down, he wraps a chain around his neck and runs off downstairs while Carl's still hanging there from the chain. And it's a brilliant scene, except you can see the safety harness. And the problem is, the reason why you can see it is because they've tried to hide it. And you can see all the hidden safety harnesses. Now the silly thing is, if they hadn't tried to hide it, you wouldn't have seen it, because safety harness would have been in metal chain, it would have been not noticeable. But the fact they tried to hide it, you just put more emphasis, he's wearing a safety harness. We want to be believed, but out of all the safety stunts that they've done in this film, and there are loads of them, that one was, yeah, a bit, too in your face, really. Number 4, CB radio. John McClane steals the CB radio, gets to the top of the building, and he radios for help and gets through to the police. No, he wouldn't have got through to the police. Now, he would have got with, and I need to my notebook because I can't remember this, he would have got through to the Radio Emergency Association Communications team. That's who he would have got hold of. They would have actually taken that call seriously and actually notified the police. He wouldn't have got straight through to the police and they would have dismissed him. They would have taken it seriously. It would have been dealt with. Too much wrong on that one. And that's not the only thing wrong with that CB radio. That CB radio can't actually broadcast on the emergency frequency anyway. Whoops! Number 3, missing vehicles. Yeah, vehicles go missing or reappear in this film twice. Now the first one, and bizarrely enough, I only noticed it watching this film to nitpick it. In fact, I only noticed it on my third watch through reviewing it for this film. When the FBI are coming along with their gunships to take out the bad guys, there's 2. They fly through the city, you always see 2 of them. Now when the building explodes and John McClane does that awesome stunt of going off the side of the building, 1 helicopter got destroyed. Can someone tell me where the other helicopter disappeared to? At no point can I actually see what happened to that second helicopter. It's a bit of a, what happened there? But that's not the only one. The ambulance that the bad guys actually were going to escape in, it was missing at the beginning of the film. Because when they arrived there, they arrived in a truck, they opened the truck up and they're all stood there. And it's an empty lorry, it's an empty van, whatever you want to call it. Now later on in the film, they go and get an ambulance out the back of that truck. Where was it? Because it was not there at the beginning of this film. Now, luckily, this has been identified by the filmmakers that there was an error here, and the reason being is because when they filmed that beginning bit, they hadn't thought of the ending. Number 2, Rolex. As Hans is hanging from Holly, he's holding on to a wrist or watch, whatever. It's very confusing, but he's holding on to her. So how does John McClane get rid of him? Well, he takes off her Rolex. Now, how do I know it's a Rolex? Well, they said at the beginning of the film, she got a Rolex for doing such a good job. Now, the Rolex itself that's seen in the film is a metal strapped Rolex. It wouldn't have been that hard to get off, and 2, they don't actually break apart like most normal cheap watches like I generally wear. Look, I'm not wearing one today. All he would have had to do is press 2 buttons, the spring loaded would have opened it up to make it wider and it would have fallen off her wrist. It wouldn't have come apart or anything like that. You have really misrepresentative Rolexes in this film. It's one of the biggest brands in watches as well. Number 1, musical change. Now, as most regular viewers of my show are aware, I am a big fan of musical scores, and the music in this film is absolutely fantastic all the way through it until right at the end when Carl miraculously returns from the dead. He comes out, and the musical score shifts. Now, I can't work it out what it's coming from. It's either Aliens, which is where I'm pretty sure it's come from, or Star Trek 3, both done by James Horner. But why the musical shift? It didn't really flow on from the rest of the film, and it made that scene stand out so badly, which isn't a good thing. The film was brilliant all the way through, and yet you sort of just ruined the music. That's all it has done, is the music is ruined. Thanks to that musical shift, don't get it. Final thoughts. Now, if I had told you that I am reviewing a film where they have no finished script, the lead bad guy had never worked in a movie in his life, he'd only done theatre work and occasional British cameos. The lead protagonist, the good guy, he's only ever done comedy work and never been an action hero. The lead actor was also working on a TV show where he couldn't fully commit to this film, so they had to create subplots to fill in the gaps while he was not available. All these things that are wrong making a film, and yet John McTiernan knocks it out of the park. This is how you make a film. He had a vision, he knew what he wanted to do, and he got it. He got it perfectly. The other thing that they didn't have is who was going to die. They actually made it up as they were going along. Right, which bad guy is the most boring? You're first to die. Who is the least boring? You're going to be the last to die. No word of a lie. That's how they made this film. This is, out of every film I've ever reviewed, a very cowboy film in any sense of the word, and yet they got it right. Everything was right. The music, bar the last little bit, was perfect. The casting was perfect. The set pieces was brilliant. The action, the stunt work, you name it, they did it brilliantly. And yet, I don't know how. That's the best thing. And the thing that I love about this film is its pacing from start to finish. It was a brilliant bit of pacing. You weren't bored, there was no lull. It kept the story flowing the whole time. And it's just under 2-hour film, and yet it does not feel like it. As I said, I watched this film 3 times back to back to try and nitpick as much as I could, which I believe I've succeeded. But that's how good this film is, because I wasn't bored watching it 3 times back to back to back. Bruce Willis has actually come out and said this was the hardest film he's ever done in his life. Why? Because he wasn't acting alongside anyone. And that's a testament to any actor, when you can pull off a brilliant performance and you're acting on your own. He was acting against a radio with not the main actor talking to. It was just someone to the side. He was walking around the room talking to himself, and yet he pulls it off brilliantly. Now, I think that's down to Bruce Willis's comedic talents, because as I said, he was a comedic actor up until this point. And yeah, everything about this film got it right, even though it shouldn't have done. So what am I going to rank this film? Do you know what? This is going to be film number 3, 10. Die Hard is getting a 10 out of 10 berries. I'm pretty sure there's going to be at least one person who says, no, you're wrong, it was an appalling film. But you're wrong. This film was brilliant. This film is a Christmas film. And if anyone wants to tweet Bruce Willis saying I've challenged him to a boxing match to prove this is a Christmas film, please do. But other than that, thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll look forward to seeing you next Sunday with what I'll probably be like on New Year's Day, New Year's Eve night. That's a really bad clue. No one in a million years is going to get that one. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.